battles there, Billy in, a goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Thank you.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted. Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance.
Hello and welcome to episode 189 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast, the podcast that is as depleted as the Huddersfield Town first team. With Cozzy away in Spain, Pozza still in hiding after his hiding from Kevin Nagle, Johnny at Crouchfest, and a lack of availability elsewhere, it looked like we were going to have to postpone. And then, from nowhere,
Here it comes.
No, not to Sting. What?
You think you know that?
Yes, the Rated R podcaster Simon Copland has returned from what must be a 18-month, 2-year hiatus, Simon. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Been a while, Matt. Nice to be back.
That's all he's got to say about that. Phil,
I'm a bit
Phil
lost
Senior
for words, Matt, after that. Thank you.
Yeah, that didn't quite go to plan, but Phil, good to see you back as well. Meal prepping going on in the background. Usually people do it for a week, and then I imagine, Phil, that probably lasts you about 2 days, doesn't it, by the way you go through stuff?
Yeah, 4 days worth in 2 days.
Right, so the big question this week is, what are we going to talk about? Let's first talk about the sponsor, Magic Rock Brewing. So this podcast, as always, is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. You will get 10% off all online orders if you use our code of AHTTC10 at checkout to www.magicrockbrewing.com. Right then, boys. Huddersfield Town 0, Watford 0. As a famous ginger podcaster once said, you can only piss with the cock that you've been given. Town with 11 players missing, which works out at about 43% of the first team squad missing. He ended up playing pretty much the way that we wanted to play last week, Phil. Last week against Leeds, you were going to be on the podcast and a couple of things came up and you wanted to get a couple of things off your chest, didn't you, really?
I got taken to Blackpool, didn't I? It was like a last minute thing, so it was probably a good idea, really, because I can imagine, obviously, like I say, everyone were a bit annoyed with the result and the performance at Leeds, but it's kind of gone now, isn't it? But yeah, just looking back at that first half, it were dreadful, wasn't it? And I just think, like, as a player that's played there and obviously understands that derby very well, it was just a shame that it all unfolded like it did, and I wouldn't say some players didn't put the effort in, but it was definitely well out of the depth within that first half, and unfortunately it kind of pulled it back around. So like I said, we're fuming at the final whistle. Well, pull it half time, really. We thought it was definitely going to be 8. So they won their way back round a little bit, didn't they? But it was I mean, we'll probably go on to talk about it now, but it was totally wrong tactics and wrong personnel for a massive game like that. Because what these players and staff have got to remember is it means everything to the fans this game, as does games like against Bradford and teams like that. And you just want a performance, and you just want the players to replicate kind of your own attitude in the stands, and it didn't quite materialise that way, did it? So yeah, but to be fair, on reflection, all in all, it was a great day. I enjoyed it. Got over to Leeds early, had a few beers in their local pub, and walked down. It was like a scene from Green Street, pretty weird back alleys kind of thing. And yeah, the trip into the ground was fine. I was expecting a little bit worse, to be honest, but with the early kickoff, it was okay. And in the ground, it was brilliant. Fans were in good spirits. A few random shouts from some fans. Must have been drinking nearly doors. And obviously they were a bit more respectful at the game yesterday, which I'm pleased with, because it could have turned a little bit nasty after Saturday. So yeah, strange
yeah.
weekend.
And I think what's interesting, so we'll flip back to Watford. The way he's lined up, I know it's by force really, because he's pretty much had no fit apart from Kyle Hudlin and very few available midfielders as well. So he's picked a 5-4-1 system. You've got Jaheim Headley playing left midfield. You've got Roman Edmonds-Green in centre midfield, and these are two defenders playing in the midfield line. And we probably wanted to line up this way last week, didn't we? Never mind this week. But like Pozza used to say, and I won't quote Pozza's famous line again, but he pretty much couldn't do anything else, could he? And we can talk about, he could have done this, he could have done that. It literally couldn't. This is the only thing he could do, isn't it? And
yeah, but I mean,
it was the right thing.
That was the problem last week, though, because it was really obvious that, and like I say, we don't want to dwell on it, but it was really obvious how good Leeds are going forwards, and it was really obvious how other teams have played against Leeds and kind of nullified their kind of strengths, and this is how we should have played. And like you say, we had Jaheim Headley was playing. It looks like he was on the wing, but he actually was very narrow. So was Sorba. We made it really hard for him to break through the middle of us and allowed him plenty of time out in wide areas. And that's what we really should have done against Leeds. And I know this has been forced upon him through personnel, etc. But I have no idea why we didn't do that against Leeds. And obviously that's on the manager's head. But we've now done this kind of same formation against two really weak teams. His argument for doing it against Sheff Wednesday can't be the same as why he's done it against Watford at home, surely, because Sheff Wednesday are a really poor team, especially without Banny Bannon. And as we saw yesterday, Watford are really weak. And things, things obviously it was set up as it was, but I would like to see a little bit of a change halfway through the game yesterday, because it was really clear to see that they were struggling to break us down.
Just before I bring Simon in, Phil, when you've been in Huddersfield teams that have played in derby matches before. I'm trying to think of a couple, but not so much Leeds. I can't remember if you played against Leeds before. I remember you playing against York and Barnsley before, haven't you? And when you lose a game against that, how do you sort of react and recover during the week? Because you're obviously very aware that the fans are going to be a little bit annoyed with you, shall we say? But yeah. How is training that week? Does it start low and get high, or do you just all get together and say, right, we need to draw a line under it and move on? Or how do you react as a player?
It depends who you've got leading you, doesn't it? And it depends about regarding the players who are within that squad, because it's a major hit if you're losing those games, and it's the fans obviously unhappy, and you should be as well as players, and we always were. When I look back to when I played, we were quite fortunate because a lot of those boys actually supported the club. So it meant a hell of a lot more to us than what it did to not more to us, but as much to us as what it did to the fans. So we felt that pain. I think it's the people in and around the club, your people like your Brookie, Kitman, people like your staff who are in the canteen, etc., all kind of there to kind of rally around with you and make sure that it's business as usual and that you don't dwell on it. And that's one of the biggest things I found, that certain people in your squad, your Jackos, Tafs, etc., will try and win you back round and kind of get that mentality back. Right, that game's gone now. We forget about that game. We can't do anything about it. We've got Watford next, and this is how we're going to play. This is how we need to set up. And that kind of professional kind of approach to it. There's no point dwelling on performances like that, but you can see if it's over and over again. And I think this is why the fans have been a little bit disappointed that conceding so many goals so easily. then obviously it tipped it off with your biggest derby that you'll play. It would affect the players a little bit. But I'm pleased that they bounced back and got a point out of the game yesterday. And obviously it's a lot better than rocking up at home and conceding another 3 points.
Simon, we'll bring you in. So welcome back, Simon. It's good to see you, mate, isn't it? And
likewise, mate.
You've been away. You've been spawning children, haven't you, in the background while the podcast has been going on and stuff. So you've still got the drink shelf as well. I think there's more added to the drink shelf. I imagine that's because of the way last season, this season's gone, I guess.
Something like that, mate. And yeah, the kids have meant the need for another drop or two from time to time.
We're struggling for things to talk about yesterday because literally nothing really happened, did it? We set up defensively. Watford had I think they had 70% possession, and no one really there was never a chance that the threat of a football match would break out, was there? Huddersfield, by design, made it awkward for Watford, but literally didn't really have much going the other way either. Kyle Hudlin's performance was an interesting one, wasn't it? He's made... he's made little fits and starts here and there. He hasn't played a lot of minutes for us. It'd be quite interesting to see how you saw his performance, because I've seen mixed reviews online. I thought there were aspects that he did were quite good, and then other aspects which you can tell he's still finding his way. But how would you sort of assess that performance by Kyle Hudlin?
It's obviously come arguably maybe a little bit too soon for him. In terms of his kind of first championship start. I don't think any of us at the start of the season foresaw him playing such an important role so soon. But obviously with the injuries to Danny Ward, the absence of Keane Harris, to Karoma and Berzog as well, kind of left him with the only option available. It kind of, for me, had quite a difficult role. Obviously quite isolated at times. But saw kind of glimpses in there that I think is someone worth persevering with and giving another chance to. But yeah, I guess yet to be convinced that he can hold his own at the championship level. He obviously didn't have a particularly successful run last year. It was at Wimbledon, wasn't it? Returned early from that. I think would have liked to have seen him had more minutes at a lower level before he gets really stuck into the town team. But we are where we are, and I guess we'll see more of him as the coming weeks progress, really.
Phil, what's really interesting about Kyle is you've got a 6'9" brute Jurassic Kyle Hudlin up there. And I think every football fan thinks, right, bang the ball up to his head and he'll win everything in the air and he'll just absolutely dominate the air. And the thing is, you can tell he's quite green, because if he gets a nudge in the back, he's kind of a little bit unsure, and that kind of discombobulates him a little bit, doesn't it? But if you play the ball into his feet, he's actually quite tidy, isn't he? When you play it in, it's just when it goes above the knee that things tend to be a bit looser, I guess, isn't it?
When you look back at the game, at the balls that got played into his feet and the link-up play, the Headley running off and Sorba running off him, and we got a little bit of joy, didn't we? And it's quite difficult, because when you've got players running past another player, trying to pass those players on as a defender is really hard, and that's when he looks like he was most comfortable. Not really dropping in really deep, but coming in short, receiving it, getting hold of the ball, one touch, play off. And the players linked up quite nicely with him, to be honest. But I found it really funny yesterday when he got taken off and the first quality ball came flying into the box, and you've got little DR in there. And it kind of just summed it up, because, I think that's one of the things we all look at Hudlin and think, right, target man, get that ball up to him. He ain't winning balls in there. Unfortunately, Hellick was caught up front at one point, and Lee Nichols pinged a beauty to him, glanced it on, we're in round the back of him, etc. He wins the ball really well, but we've got a striker there who doesn't obviously look as comfortable in that kind of role. And when you look at players like this, I think it's a little bit of a niche position, and I think managers have got to work really hard in terms of how you want him to play and how you want to use him. You can see he's not the fittest player, and he's not going to be able to get around the pitch as quick and as mobile as others. But you can see there's some clear strengths in his game. He wouldn't be playing otherwise. And like I say, I've said this in the pod before. His touch looks really good on the floor, and he strikes the ball really clean. You know, I've looked at a little bit of footage of him, and he really hits a good ball. So like Si said there, there's something there. I think it's just working out how to use him, and what I struggle with is sometimes when he comes on as a sub, it's kind of like, I don't know, hit and hope, and it looks like it really doesn't suit him. So I think that's something the manager needs to look at if you know, going forward we're going to be short of players and he wants to use him. I
think for me, he's going to often be used as a plan B, isn't he, off the bench with 10, 15 minutes to go when you're chasing the game. But to Phil's point, inevitably when you're chasing the game, you tend to, so you need to start really. And his record at B team level is quite good. You question that as ever is kind of how big is that gap between B team level football and kind of championship level football, and he's not done that much in between that would suggest he's going to kind of hit the ground running really. But I think in the absence of anything else, would quite like to persevere with him for a bit longer for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
There's something there, isn't there? I think when you watch him, there's something there. Like you say, not quite sure what yet, but there's definitely something there. There's a decent touch in amongst. I'm just looking at the touches. And like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players who took a touch which lost the ball. Kyle Hudlin wasn't one of them. Jaheim Headley took 4 touches which ran loose, 3 for Ben Wiles, and then Pearson, Thomas, Nakayama, and Diarra 1 each. And so it's quite neat and tidy, I guess, is where I'm going with that. You know, and he's almost like a paradox, isn't he? He plays like he's a 5'8" striker, but you know, he's a 6'9" monster. It's really funny. It's almost parallel to Peter Crouch when Peter Crouch was quite decent, you know, early on. He was really good with his feet. And then if you back a daddy long legs in a wind tunnel, wouldn't he? His arms and legs everywhere and all sorts. But you know, he's definitely an interesting character and worth persevering with. My little boy loves him. My little boy's into wrestling, and they're all big units. So when Kyle Hudlin comes on, his jaw hits the drum, and he just watches Kyle Hudlin walking around. Don't watch the game, just watches Kyle Hudlin. It's like thinks he's about to whip out some kind of DDT or something. But
I thought it was nice that the fans gave him a nice applause when he came. I mean, I don't think by any means it was his best game, but I think the fans could appreciate. You know, they could see that he's done his best in what he had there. You know, up front, and I like the fact that they were, you know, a decent ovation when he came off, because you know he's a young kid too. You forget, and he needs all that support he can get. Yeah,
I think town fans will always appreciate someone who works hard, and I think that's it's minimum requirement for a lot of clubs. But Huddersfield fans will always appreciate those that, you know, wear the shirt with a little bit of pride. Ben Jackson's another one as well. I've seen comments about Ben Jackson. I thought this was probably one of his best games in a town shirt. He's often, you know, he's playing slightly out of position there. I wouldn't say Ben Jackson's completely two-footed, but he's fairly decent with his right. And, you know, his wing-back role is definitely made for him. And he was the one who looked the most threatening at certain points, cutting in onto his left foot. He had one shot went through to Batman in goal. I can't believe Watford fans don't do the Batman tune for him. But so the one where they cut through, another one which could have taken a deflection and found the net. And I think we saw a decent, probably one of the better performances I've seen out of Ben Jackson, really. And Ben Wiles was similar. I thought Ben Wiles stepped up without Jonathan Hogg in midfield and Jack Redoni. And I thought he actually had a good game, Ben Wiles. And, you know, he almost helped create a goal, didn't he, in the first half as well. So there's a few. I know we're struggling massively to bring anything out of this to talk about because literally nothing happened. But there were a couple of performances where you look and you think, okay, Ben Wiles has played better than he has previously, which is a bonus. And Ben Jackson's played better than he has previous as well. So there are a couple of points there, which I'm sure you can spend about 20 seconds dwelling on, Phil, Simon.
I'd like to see Ben Jackson given a run of games, really. I feel like he's probably been a victim of his own versatility. Kind of under Corberan, he played in centre midfield, didn't he? He's played quite a bit of left back throughout his career, left wing, now right wing. He's even played right back, I think, at various points as well. So obviously having that versatility in the squad has been really useful, but at the same time, it's meant he's never really been able to hold down a particular position. And I think he will, like a lot of these kids, benefit from a run of games, a succession of games, see what he could do. But he's certainly kind of had some better touches on the ball than probably what I've seen in the past. And he certainly was able to probably make the right decision more often than not. So, yeah, kind of pleased with him.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I think he's, like you say, I think that versatility is really important. I think early doors in the game, he gave the ball away a little bit too easily. I think the whole team did, to be honest. I think when you're playing a formation like we were doing, I think it's really key that once you retain the ball, you've got to keep hold of it for a little bit longer than what we did do. And I think the quality showed to be a bit wasteful, and that was disappointing. But I think that, the times he got down the right wing and was positive, it made a difference to the team. And I just think, like you say, like at this point of the season, you can see that confidence quite be a little bit low, because there were times where he did cut in, and I would have liked to have seen him be a bit more positive, driving a little bit closer and have a better shot than what he did. But this is what we're going to rely on now, aren't we? And I think someone like him in that position, I felt really comfortable watching him. Matty Pearson behind him is going to help him as well. So, but we look at the performances of our players, but let's not forget how poor they were. They never really looked to want to get in behind us until probably the last 20 minutes of the game. So I think it was a bit of a slow burner, and I think it was easy to put in a couple of decent performances because we were so deep and we stuck to a kind of plan. And it weren't great, to be honest. And we're probably trying to look for positives here, but in possession it wasn't great. But I think first and foremost, and I think we all agree, it was really important that we didn't suffer like we did the week before, and I think it was a good result for us in the end. But Sai hit the nail on the head. I don't know if you said it on here, but off camera. But if we have to watch that week in, week out, it's going to turn a lot of people off, and I'm sure we won't do. I'm sure it's just a means to an end kind of thing. But yeah, there's a couple of positives, but a few negatives.
I think that one thing that surprised me actually was just how poor Watford were. I think I probably had high expectations for Watford, albeit the away side, and I appreciate they've been kind of in the Championship for a couple of seasons now, haven't they? But they didn't really look to change the game in any particular way. They didn't really seem to offer anything as the game progressed, and almost like they were quite content with a point up against a very defensive Huddersfield. And Huddersfield played as I expected them to play, particularly when I saw the kind of formation. But Watford, I thought, that was they didn't bring much to the party whatsoever.
I felt like, I don't know what you lot feel like, but I felt like Romani Edmonds-Green really struggled. I thought he looked like he was short of a couple of yards. Yeah. Honestly, it was so easy just to glide past him, and that was a real issue. And I felt for some of these young kids, because there's a couple of young lads there that I think probably deserve a chance in there. I know we can go back to it, can't we, and say, oh yeah, they're only young in this position, etc. But I have a bit of faith with some of these kids, especially when you're playing formations like we're playing there, where there's a hell of a lot of kind of supporting behind you, etc. I thought it was a bit of a missed trick really there to put one of those boys on, because there's a couple of good players in there that probably need a chance.
The one that you're thinking about there, Phil, isn't it? He's sort of been in and around for a while. Tommy Openda. Another one as well. So yeah, I mean,
and Osterfield's spoken. They speak really highly of him inside the club. So there's a few there.
I mean, I have got a point to talk about, which is about the injuries and training, and the injuries themselves are happening again. It happened last year. Well, I've got another point on that. But do you think this is a case of changing training during mid-season? I remember Danny Cowley talking about periodization and all sorts at one point, like a PE teacher, wasn't he? And then,
so that's like strength and conditioning period. Like, oh god, there's too much jargon in there.
I know, but do you think some of this is, we've gone from a Neil Warnock training system, and Neil Warnock's training is renowned to being quite lax, if you like, not exactly high intensity, and all of a sudden you bring in a modern manager like Darren Moore, and the majority of modern managers, they try and get the players as fit as possible, don't they? And I guess the training level has gone up. This is just me surmising, really. Yeah. Training level's gone up, and then all of a sudden Kyle Hudlin, you look at the B team, and the B team isn't the most competitive, and there aren't games every week, and Kyle Hudlin and Romani Edmonds-Green have been milling around, between the two. And they've both gone off with cramp. I mean, Romani Edmonds-Green went down after about 58, 59 minutes with cramp. And, Romani Edmonds-Green's never been the fittest player, has he? I remember him being sent out on loan with Carlos here because he for fitness. And Kyle Hudlin's gone, holding his hamstring area with cramp. And, it's not their fault. It's just it just feels there's been kind of a change, a mid-season, a midpoint training, and that can lead to injuries, can't it, Phil? When someone comes in and all of a sudden you're working at a completely different rate to what you were before.
Yeah, it can. You'd hope that they'd come in and they'd have a bit of a knowledge of where players are at. For me, we're in the middle of the season now, so in terms of like fitness, I can't really see them doing much fitness work. The game's changed, so there's going to be a lot of work, obviously within training and phase of players and strategy work, etc. I can't see it being like we used to do when Lou used to send you on a lose loop. And you used to have to run around Stores Hall in a certain amount of time. And Danny Schofield will hide behind a wall, wait till we all got round to the other side and then cut across and rejoin. Do you know what I mean? And Danny Schofield never got injured. We did more running than him, but him and Nat Brown.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he didn't. Maybe that's it, Phil. Like under Neil Warnock, we didn't get injuries. Maybe they weren't running. Maybe they were just kind of.
Yeah, exactly. But I can imagine there may be something he's trying to do extra in the gym. I know a lot of people respond differently to gym work, strength and conditioning. A lot of players just perform better. I mean, Worthy, I don't think if Worthy bloody touched a weight, he'd fall down and fall asleep or something. Whereas other lads needed it. Do you know what I mean? So they are all individual. But I think nowadays, and if you're talking about Dan Moore and his methods and new methods, etc., if that's what he likes to do, they're wired up with GPS. They can see the blood lactate levels, all that kind of stuff. If that's where town are at, and there shouldn't really be any concerns about changing managers. I don't know. I'm not sure it. Unless he's literally just come in and said, right, we're doing extra training more than what Neil Warnock would do. I don't know. It's
all guesswork, isn't it? We guess.
Sometimes,
we guess.
Yeah. I thought you were going to kind of come round to the fact that sometimes when going gets tough, a lot of people, when they've got a little bit of a niggle, they tend to find the easy way out and kind of call in a little injury. So that's what I thought you were kind of coming around to, because
Neil Warnock used to hint that he would play players with a little niggle anyway, wouldn't he? He used to just pick them anyway. Danny Ward, a case in point where Danny Ward was, came back and played and he's out again. But they were just like, I'm just thinking last year, because there's shades of Mark Fotheringham a little bit. When Mark Fotheringham came in last year, there were, he wanted to play two up front, didn't he? There's just some uncomfortable comparisons. Like 12 months on, it's like he came in, wanted to play two up front, wanted to play attacking football. He was all about it, so he said. And then we got walloped a couple of times, and then he realised that this squad's made for deep defending, and we played some really mind-numbing stuff for months on end under Mark Fotheringham. And Darren Moore even said on Radio Leeds after the game not to get too high and too low when we lose. And it was when Oggy said that, and I was like, oh my God, this is like Fotheringham Mark II here for a second. I was just like, oh, the deja vu, yeah. And I was just like, oh, come on, Darren, I don't want to. I can't listen to Darren Moore too long anyway, because he's one of those where he's not a media guy, is he? He just kind of talks in cliches and just fills time, doesn't he? You can tell he don't really want to do it. He's a lovely bloke.
He says a lot without saying very much.
Yeah, he doesn't. He says a lot. We say it by saying nothing, doesn't he? And he keeps saying part and partial instead of part and parcel in his interviews as well, and that drives me mad. But it was just that really. It's just those shades there, and when you're not very good, you start looking for like little patterns and stuff. And that pattern came up, and I was like, oh God, hopefully that's not going to reappear again. But I think what we'll do, we're talking absolute shite here, so we'll move on and we'll bring in someone. We'll bring in a man who knows how to speak about the game. We're going to bring in Mike from the Rookery End. So Mike Parkin is a Watford fan, and he's going to look at the game from a Watford perspective.
Hello, this is Mike from the Watford podcast From The Rookery End. And well, we've seen history. We've been a part of history for the first time ever. Watford and Huddersfield have played out a 0-0 draw. The first time two teams have had a goalless match. And I think both teams were lucky to get 0, quite frankly. Watford, on the plus side, that's 5 games in a row unbeaten. We've stopped conceding goals at the alarming rate that we were before. But in terms of positives, that's about it. Watford sort of seem to be intent on making themselves the most mediocre side in Championship history, and they're doing that pretty well under Valérien Ismaël. Had all of the possession against a depleted Huddersfield. I think I'm right in saying that they only couldn't even fill the bench. 2 of the substitutes were goalkeepers, so that tells us everything we need to know about, with all due respect, the opposition and the state that the Terriers were in. And the fact that Watford weren't really able to conjure up any chances of note, despite having, I think, 70% possession, probably tells you everything you need to know about the Hornets at the moment. More worried about being solid at the back than scoring up front. And even if we were focused on scoring, I don't think we could. We've got Rajovic and Vacuum Bio up front. And I reckon we could take the first 2 people that download this podcast, stick them up front, and they'd be just about as good as them. So, yeah, the most 0-0 of 0-0 draws. I guess more helpful for Watford than it is for Huddersfield. A point away from home is always, I guess, not to be sniffed at. But there's definite consternation amongst the Hornets faithful about the way Watford played yesterday. Lots of sidewards passing, all the possession, but no cutting edge whatsoever. And it's not one that I think many people will have stayed up to watch the highlights of. Huddersfield 0, Watford 0. I don't know if there's anything else to say, is there? I just hope the next team that comes to the John Smiths is slightly more exciting than we were. All the best, lads.
There we go. That's all we need to say, really, on the podcast.
Did anyone see the highlights on the Sky Sports app?
No, I've seen the YouTube ones. We had something. Charlie was watching something on YouTube earlier, and then it rolled to Huddersfield Town's highlights afterwards. And then I can't believe they managed to get 10 minutes out of them. That it just absolutely stunned me. 10 minutes.
One of the best highlights were Kyle Hudlin closing keeper down, ball hitting his leg and going out for a dead ball. I thought that was unbelievable. Biggest talking point of the game.
Do you know what? There was one point during the game, and one right at the end of the game. I think it was when Diarra came on, and we worked the ball to the left-hand side, and we put a really decent ball into the box. I couldn't tell if it was Nakayama or I think it was Nakayama, perhaps, who put it in. And the defender, the Watford defender, just lunged back in the end and put it out for the corner, which we didn't get to take. But it was just a whisker away just from going to Diarra at the far post, and that would have been an absolute grand larceny, highway robbery kind of result. Because, like Mike says, no one deserved a point from the game, because it was just one of those really bad ones. But I think it might be one of those that we might be grateful for, because there's 10 games left now until January, and Huddersfield just need to keep picking up these points because the squad's decimated. It's going to be a really tough time between now and January, I think, and the noises that I'm hearing are the club are going to try and do all they can to go out and sign decent players in January, or try and sign some decent players. Slight worry is the 2 players that Mark Cartwright signed so far are Tom Edwards and Delano Bergzorg. But, we're hopeful that come January there'll be a couple, because they really need to pull a couple out of the hat, don't they, to make sure that this season doesn't go down the toilet like last season did until Neil Warnock came in. Because last year we brought in Florian Camberi, Martin Waghorn to solve the striking problems, and they only really added to it, didn't they? It was just,
this... Bergzorg, I'm normally kind of against players like this. A little bit greedy sometimes. You don't know what you're going to get. I don't mind him. And I don't know if that's because what we've got up front at the moment and there's not much else. But he's quite exciting for me. I think he runs the channels well. I think he works hard. He's a grafter. I don't think he shirks any hard work. No. I just think he lacks a little bit of quality, doesn't he? At times, but I think he's brave enough to hit those longer distance shots and be a little bit more aggressive. I don't mind him too much. I'm hoping there's going to be a little bit more from him.
He's one of the only players who gets you on the edge of a seat right now.
Yeah.
It was quite a defensive minded squad. I would like to see us looking to the loan market a bit in January. I think obviously that's somewhere we've had success previously. Premier League loans, going back to the promotion era, going back to Copland. My hunch is that kind of Premier Leagues were probably reluctant to loan as players under Warnock for the style of football that would play. Will they be more willing to do so now? Moore's in charge, possibly. But hopefully that would allow us to get people in the door probably a bit quicker than what we would do otherwise. So we'll watch this space.
I've said this before, like what the club's done in terms of the training ground and facilities, etc. That should be quite an incentive to, not an incentive, but a bigger positive to loan your players out, knowing that they're going to be in a decent environment, a decent training environment. And that's one of the biggest things I thought linked to the facilities that we've got. So I think we've got a better chance of getting better players, hopefully. But I was a bit disappointed that we didn't really dip into that market because we were short on players anyway.
But didn't seem any desire to do so, did they, Phil? There didn't seem any. There was never any rumours. Didn't seem any kind of appetite to do that. And I don't know if that's a change of approach, change of strategy. But I think given where we are, I think
is it would it a Warnock thing? Would it a Warnock thing? You know, we've spoke about this before. Like, not everybody likes to play for Neil Warnock teams. So is there a lot of managers out there that don't want to do him a favour? And is there a lot of players out there that don't really want to play for someone like Neil Warnock? I mean, I think I would do. It'd be the kind of manager that I would like to play for. But I think there's probably a lot out there that wouldn't. So,
what do you think we need, Phil, come January to sort of avoid, getting sucked into something we don't want in the second? How many players? Because I think we need a right back. You look at the centre backs are all right, but no one's really got any pace, but that can wait, can't it? That sort of position.
I think it's good enough.
Yeah. Left backs, we've got 3, haven't we? Really, in Nakayama, Jackson, and Headley.
Yeah.
None of them are sort of amazing, but they're all right, serviceable, aren't they? Midfield, you're looking at Hogg, and Hoggy's going to have spells out injured. We don't really have a 6, do we? In the squad, you're looking back to Reg and Osterfield. We're short there. We don't have anyone who can pass the ball in midfield. You've got Redoni and Wiles who are decent box to box, but no one can control a game. And then you're looking out wide, and I'm trying to do an article on Town's attacking options at the minute, which is taking me forever because I don't really get the time to do it. And we haven't created a goal from the left wing this season. It's just, so we've not created from a left winger this season, and. So you're looking there, and then you're looking up front. Do we need 1 striker? Do we need 2? Do we need to bring Rhodes back? Danny Watt, what's going on? There's a lot that needs to be done, isn't there?
I think we've got to be realistic, can't we? And ideally, for me, a striker, a winger, a centre midfielder is the key for me. So whether you bring in players there, or like we've mentioned there, like bring some loans in or something to cover those areas. But yeah, I think we're pretty short, aren't we? I've been pretty impressed with Sorba's attitude. To his work rate, etc. And things. It's been nice to see him clapping the fans. I didn't think he was too bothered about the fans. I thought it was more about his own teammates and stuff. So it's been nice that he's been clapping his fans and appreciating the kind of praise he's been getting, because I think he's been brilliant. I really do. I think he's worked really hard and irrelevant of final balls, etc. I think his work rate has been immense. But yeah, we are short.
Yeah, I'd like to see us getting probably 3 in at the top end of the pitch. I'll take your point about right back, Matt. I think hopefully Turton comes back there and can play some of the second half of the season. If he does, then that would be like a new addition, really. I can't see us strengthening that area. So we've got Edwards on the books for a kind of
it'd be bad for me with Edwards.
I agree, but in terms of priorities, I don't see that happening. I think 3 kind of 1 out and out striker, 2 who can play off either side would probably be where I would be focusing my time and energies.
I felt a little bit sorry for Edwards at Leeds. I know people are probably slating him, etc. But what's he supposed to do? He's hardly played, and he's coming up against those 3, 4 really up front. What are you going to do? And the formation we played, it were Addington. I think poor lad. The counter attacks, and he's not going to. He can't respond to that, can he? But he's not the answer, is he? Really isn't the answer. I don't know why we signed him. But I think he's had a bit of unfair criticism, really. It's. But
it's unfair. But he's been thrown to the wolves a little bit. I take that point. But he's not. He's just not very good, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's not. But he's not going on there to play pool, is he? And we've seen it news. We've seen that news recently where Rashford's been coming to stick because he's played a game, lost, and then gone out on a night out, etc. These players are allowed to live a life. Now, albeit I won't be going out after losing 4-1 to Leeds away from home. But not everybody's the same, are they? And I think sometimes you've...
everyone's different. Sometimes you need to go out and let your hair down and feel better about yourself, don't you? I've got no issues with him going out and what have you, as long as it's after the game and not the night before, because I couldn't tell which one it was.
Well, hey, listen. Kenny Irons used to go out the night before, didn't he? And drink a fair bit of beer, and he always rocked up and performed.
Mate, I know it's completely different levels, but when I used to play my mate used to play at, I can't remember what division it was, but it was quite a decent amateur level, and the striker used to go out and have 2 pints just before kickoff. And they used to go into the clubhouse, 2 pints just before kickoff, and he was top scorer in the league. Amazing. I was used to wonder if that like helped him confidence-wise, or whether he'd have played like 3 leagues higher if he didn't drink so much. But,
made better runs. He had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, honestly, he got some like 57 goals one season, and he must have something across the court across the season. Unbelievable.
You're talking about like bringing in players and what we need, but I think as well, like it's the formation. So what's going to suit where we're at the moment and the players that we've got. Do you know what I mean? So because I think I felt pretty comfortable with having 3 at the back and Sorba playing right wing back. For me, we've looked quite solid when it's been like that at home, especially because he's obviously bombed on a little bit more. And I think, you know, in
as long as you have Matty behind, Matty Pearson's the perfect right-sided centre back for that, isn't he? Really, because he's played right back and he understands the space that Sorba leaves, doesn't he? So as long as you've got Matty Pearson there, that's not a problem for me.
But I think Sorba's obviously he's more effective higher up the pitch, isn't he, Sorba? So you know, if we're talking about using the players that we've got, and you've got Sorba and Karoma there, who are both, you know, pretty attacking players who have done well in the past. You know, is it a change of formation that we need, or is it personnel for the formation that he wants to play? You know, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could play a back four. You could play a back four with Matty Pearson at right back. I know he's not going to gallivant forward, but he was good end of last season, wasn't he? At right. Yeah. If you're playing a back 3, who do you play at your left-sided centre back? Because Tom Lees I like Tom Lees, but he's not natural left side. But Josh Ruffles looked all right, didn't he? As a left-sided centre back in a 3. So there's a lot of options at the back. It's further up the field you get. And,
I agree. Yeah,
you know that you sort of struggle. So, but Darren Moore played a back 3 at Sheffield Wednesday, didn't he? For the time he was there, he quite liked the 3-4-1-2, and he started that here. Whether that's going to be his system, I don't know. Town, I think, probably suit a back 4. The defenders probably suit a back 4 a bit back, I think. But I don't know. It depends.
Look at it at the moment. We suit 5 at back, don't we? I think you know where we're at.
We suit about 10 at the back, I think, at the minute. But yeah. Let's move on. I've only got a couple of other points really, because we're really struggling to fill this. We could have wrapped this podcast up in 10 minutes, but Clappers made a reappearance, didn't they, for the first time since the Premier League era, or just after, really. I think we had some of the year after. Do you like or dislike Clappers? I've seen people talking about this online, and I'm going to go to Simon first. What do you reckon to Clappers? Are you for them, against them, or do you just not care?
Yeah, probably more the latter, Matt. I'm a bit ambivalent about it, really.
Yeah, similar.
It wouldn't be for me, but it doesn't offend me. And if people like them, crack on.
That's a big word.
That's exactly
like that.
Ambivalent.
Yeah, we'll talk about Clappers and ambivalent as well. Come on.
What's your view then, Phil?
I'm the same, Phil. Mate. I'm just like, well, kids love them, family stands love them. You know, anyone who likes it, crack on, clap on, even.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, like there were 2 negatives to these Clappers at the weekend, and I'm probably the same as Si. Like I'm not too bothered whether they have them or not. But the at the start when we had to hold them up and for the poppy, that was an absolute shambles. Like couldn't get that wrong, could we? Yeah, we did. Like gaps in crowd and all sorts. Like didn't even bother holding it up. So that was a shambles, which was should have been something nice. And then just kids around me, and my mate's kid was one of them, just slapping it on the chairs because there were so many seats. Oh God, it was so annoying. So I ended up moving. But I think it brings a little bit of atmosphere to the ground. But you just get slated by everybody, don't you? You know, these fans online who are happy Clappers, and Leicester had it the other day and all that. I think it's each to their own. And if fans, I mean, they use them, don't they? You know, you can't say they don't. You know, everyone would just sat there. And whether it's something because you're a bit bored and you just kind of like just tapping away, but it makes a little bit of atmosphere. So I was more concerned about why we had 24 people sat behind the goal in pissing down range. You know what I mean? They weren't using their Clappers, and if they were like holding them above their heads.
It was a strange one, that, wasn't it? Because we can't fill. I mean, the FML only gets wheeled out really when the other stands are looking slightly full, and we've struggled for this season. We've struggled for crowds. Our crowds, since we've been relegated from the Premier League, seem to sort of dip 21-22 when we finished third. But we just, I don't know. There's a lot of space that you have to fill in the main areas first, and then to be honest though, one thing I hate is when there's the goals go in at that end and there's no one behind. It looks really shit, doesn't it? It looks really, really bad. So I'm all for people being in there, but it's a really crap place to be. We had season cards in there when me and Pod started Pod started the Cowshed Loyal, and I was helping him with it in like 2008. So we decided to go in there because we thought that could be like the home end because we couldn't have the south stand, and it was shit, really. And it was hard to make noise in there. When it would rain, it rained into your face, and the stand, you sit down and you feel like if it's going to be full, you feel like it's going to like collapse or something. It's all temporary. And the one thing when Kevin Nagel was on about buying. Oh, it was mentioned, with the swimming pool and stuff going, Cala closing the pool, aren't they, etc. And it did cross my mind whether to think, do you know what? Maybe they might sack off the leisure centre and just create a proper end, and you can actually go in through that side, and then the kiosks can be in there, and you can actually make it slightly better and take out the temporary stuff. Things like that cost money, don't they? Which the club aren't going to spend anytime soon, but. It's a nice idea to have, isn't it? And then you can kind of use that end properly rather than it feel like, somebody like a building site, which is what it feels like. It was strange, wasn't it, to sort of put them in that weekend? I don't even know what the point of it was for. I didn't really look into it too much, but it was, it's nice to have that stand full, but I didn't really get. But for me, they should really use that stand for school kids. Give free school kids tickets and stuff like that. The old boys enclosure kind of thing. Just get as many school kids, because at the end of the day, at the minute, you've got Man City ripping it up. You've got Man United are always attractive. Liverpool and Leeds are good again, unfortunately. And in Huddersfield and Sheffield Wednesday to the south, although they're not that good, but Sheffield United, and you've got a lot of competition for fans, haven't you, in your own area? Just try and get these young lads indoctrinated before they work out that Huddersfield aren't that great, and there are better teams to support elsewhere. Get them in and get them hooked before they get chance. You know what I mean? That's what happened to me when I was a kid.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
I think I completely agree, Matt, but probably not kind of on the wettest, coldest day of the year. Probably maybe the end of August or start of September might have been a better idea, perhaps.
Yeah, strange one, but that's it, really, isn't it? Clappers, nah. FML, what's it called? The big red end, isn't it? Nowadays,
big red end.
It's just like, and that's it. I don't think there's really much to talk about, is there? It's just we've really struggled to fill this podcast with any meaningful content. So I do apologise for that. It's a really crap one this week, as was my tweet about defending like Beavers, but it seemed to get some sort of traction. But if anybody saw that, it's an old Chris Kamara quote that he used on Soccer Saturday when I think Spurs were playing Arsenal, and Arsenal were absolutely battering them, and he said no, and he described Spurs as fighting like Beavers and defending for their lives, which felt very apt for what Huddersfield did, because we were under the cosh. But to finalise as well, HTFC women had a game today, and unfortunately they've lost 3-1 to Liverpool Feds. We're continuing to sponsor the HTFC women's captain, Beth Stanfield. So all the best to them, and hopefully they can bounce back next week as well, and maybe get down to a game at some point this season as well. Guys, that's it really. 48 minutes. This is going to be the shortest podcast for ages. Shall I play your video again, Simon? Because I feel like we're just killing time.
Get on. And just looking at Cozzy's face on that just kills me.
Yeah, that's because he's great for videos. He's got a very expressive face. That's it. Any other business, chaps, before we wrap it up?
No, unfortunately not. But again, the queues were great underneath the ground, half time before the game. Fantastic, easy to get a pie and a drink.
Where do you sit, Phil? Out of interest.
Oh God, what's it called?
Just the stand, not
the
just the stand,
stand,
not
the
core stand.
Yeah, just to the left at dugouts.
Okay, so you're lower tier, aren't you?
Yeah,
that's fine. I've had this idea for the Kilner Bank for absolutely ages, and if you're going to say Kilner Bank, I would have floated it past you just to see how that works. Simon, are you in the Kilner Bank? Are you in the South Stand? You're in the Kilner Bank.
Kilner Bank now.
Yeah, so there's a huge wall at the back of the Kilner Bank, isn't there? An absolutely massive wall. And a couple of years ago, I suggested that we should Have you ever seen the Man City Stadium? How they've got like a timeline going around the stadium, and it's all graphically painted. I've said for years that we should have on the back of the Kilner Bank, we should have a history, like a charted history on the back of the Kilner, because there's nothing on it. And you could get a local artist, you could get Peter O'Toole, or you could get Ian Berry or someone, just to have like your last 100 odd years of history start on the left hand side and just have it going on. You know, pictures of what happened when they won the league and moving on, and different heroes. And what you could do is you could paint a different hero every year. You could induct them into like a Hall of Fame. And put them on the wall, etc. I think there's so much they can do at the stadium at the minute. We talked about the FML, the fantastic media. If there's money to do it, this is how that can be better. And I just think that would be something quite good to have at the back of the Kilner Bank, and something good to show off. And because I do like the effort they made with the at Canalside at
looks really good.
High performance complex. Yeah, looks great. Stuff like that looks really great, good. And it just. And when you turn up to a stadium and you've got things like that, it just, I don't know, it just adds something to it for me. Whereas if you walk in and it's just, if you just walk in and there's grey walls with sachets of sugar thrown on the
if you're lucky.
Yeah, it's just little things to make it better. If you like the idea, let us know. But I might float that to Mr. Nagel, see what he thinks. But that's it, guys, for this week. Thank you very much, Phil, for joining us. Simon, we're going to have to get you on when there's more exciting things to talk about, because we've really struggled, haven't we, to get through this. But, guys, it's been a pleasure. Let's roll the end credits.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.